In the heart of Kenya, nestled among the sprawling hills of Meru, stood the grand palace of King Bogo. His only child, Princess Akinyi, was loved by all for her beauty, intelligence, and kindness. However, Akinyi harbored a secret longing. The constant attention she received wasn't because of who she was, but what she was, a princess. At 27, the pressure to marry weighed heavily on her. The elders, including her father, had begun parading suitors before her: wealthy men, noblemen, and powerful leaders. Yet, Akinyi yearned for someone who would love her not for her crown, but for her heart. One evening, as she gazed out of her balcony overlooking the lush landscape, an idea formed in her mind. She would disguise herself as a commoner and venture into the village to experience life without royal privileges. Only then could she find someone who truly loved her for who she was. A week later, Akinyi stood at the edge of the bustling village marketplace, dressed in a simple kitenge and sandals. She had left behind her silk gowns and gold jewelry, blending perfectly with the villagers. She introduced herself as Nyambura, a wanderer looking for work. Life in the village was far from easy, but Akinyi relished the freedom it brought. She worked at Mama Wanjiru's food stall, peeling potatoes and serving meals. The villagers quickly grew fond of her warm smile and hardworking nature. It was here that she met Kamau, a carpenter with calloused hands and an infectious laugh. Kamau was unlike anyone Akinyi had ever met. He was kind, witty, and unafraid to speak his mind. They often spent evenings talking under the acacia tree by the river, sharing stories and dreams. Akinyi felt her heart stir for the first time, but she knew she couldn't reveal her true identity, not yet. Akinyi's double life was growing complicated. Her frequent absences raised suspicion among the palace guards. One of them, Odiombo, began to secretly follow her. One fateful evening, as she laughed with Kamau under the stars, Odiombo confronted her. "Princess Akinyi, what are you doing here?" he hissed. Kamau froze, staring at her in shock. "Princess." Akinyi tried to explain, but Kamau's face hardened. "You lied to me," he said, his voice filled with hurt. "You think you can play with people's lives because you're royalty." Before she could respond, Kamau walked away, leaving her heartbroken. Word of Akinyi's escapades reached the palace. The king, furious and embarrassed, forbade her from leaving the palace grounds. He began arranging her marriage to Chief Ngugi, an older but influential man from a neighboring region. Meanwhile, Kamau couldn't shake his feelings for Nyambura. Despite his anger, he missed her presence. However, his life took a dangerous turn when strangers approached him in the market, offering him gold in exchange for information about the princess. Sensing something was amiss, Kamau pretended to cooperate, while secretly planning to warn Akinyi. The palace was abuzz with preparations for Akinyi's engagement to Chief Ngugi. On the night of the engagement ceremony, Kamau snuck into the palace disguised as a servant. He managed to find Akinyi in her chambers. "What are you doing here?" She whispered, shocked. "I know I was angry, but something doesn't feel right." "There are people plotting against you," he said. Before Akinyi could respond, they heard footsteps. Kamau hid as the guards entered, informing her it was time for the ceremony. As Akinyi walked down the grand hall, she felt trapped. Chief Ngugi smirked, clearly reveling in his victory. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted. Kamau had triggered a diversion, allowing him to reach the main hall. "You can't marry her," Kamau shouted, stepping forward. "Ngugi is conspiring with outsiders to overthrow the throne." Gasps filled the hall. Ngugi denied the accusations, but Akinyi, emboldened by Kamau's courage, demanded an investigation. The royal guards uncovered documents in Ngugi's quarters, proving Kamau's claims. Ngugi was arrested, and the engagement was called off. After the chaos subsided, Akinyi and Kamau found themselves alone in the palace gardens. "You risked everything to save me," Akinyi said, tears in her eyes. "I couldn't let anything happen to you," Kamau replied. But I still don't know if I belong in your world. Akinyi took his hand. It's not about where you come from. It's about where we go together. Will you give us a chance? Kamau smiled, his heart finally at ease. I will. Months later, the palace hosted a grand wedding, not for a princess and a nobleman, but for a princess and a carpenter. Akinyi and Kamau's love story became the talk of the kingdom, inspiring songs and tales. As they stood on the palace balcony, overlooking the hills of Meru, Kamau turned to Akinyi. Do you regret choosing this path? Never, Akinyi said, resting her head on his shoulder. I found someone who loves me for who I am, not what I am. And so, under the golden Kenyan sunset, they began their happily ever after, proving that love knows no boundaries.